Hello friends. So we have studied what is an agile. That agile lays a set of beliefs or values which should be followed so that you can build a software development project. On these beliefs and values, there are a number of models developed which follows the agile. So the most popular one is the Scrum methodology. So in this session, we'll be talking about the Scrum. How this Scrum or the sprint works, we will just break down the Scrum into sprints. In the waterfall model, what we have studied, like in the initial phase, the whole requirements are done, then the whole design is done, then the whole development is done, and the whole testing and deployment is done. It takes a full life cycle to be completed, then only the final product is visible to the client. Now what this Scrum says that take a small part of a project of a software to be built, plan it, then build it, test it and review it. So it's a minimum set of shippable product. For example, let's say you want to build an e-commerce website. Though there can be n number of modules in them. For example, the one can be integration of payment system, one can be logging and sign up, one can be the cart functionality. So it can be broken down into number of features. So it says break the whole development into a number of sprints, or you can say a number of parts. So in the first part, build a small projects which can be shipped to the customer or which can be shown to the customer. For example, let's on the first phase develop only the login and sign up screens and functionality. Once they are developed, ship product, for example, display to the client. Then again do this activity, that is again plan, build and test, review a next set of phase. For example, in that case you can develop the integration of payment system. So instead of developing the whole of the software, build small parts of the software which can be shipped to the customer. Build a software in incremental model. Build a small part, then on top of that build a small part of the software, so that in each phase which we call them in a sprint, the outcome of that sprint is shippable to the client. Similarly, when the second phase completes or the sprint completes, then work on the next item and so on. This one activity, this one phase is known as a sprint. So first the one sprint takes place and the product is shipped to the customer. Then the second sprint starts and shipped to the customer. And then on top the third sprint starts and shipped to the customer. So the software is developed on incremental model. Unlike the waterfall model, the whole of the product is only visible to the client once the complete software is built. But here in this Scrum, after the end of each sprint, the product is visible to the client, though not the complete model, but a part of the functionality. So after period of time, customer is able to view enhanced part of the software gradually. When we talk about Scrum, we talk about a number of terms. So let's go through all the terms. First of all, the artifacts, the documentations and the stuff in which are prepared in the Scrum. So the first one is product backlog. So what is a product backlog? When we want to develop a software, there are n number of activities which we need to do. Like we have discussed before, for example, when you are developing a website, what all you need? You need a login, you need a payment gateway system, and n number of activities. So those n number of activities, all the activities which are needed to develop a software, that specific software which a client wants, is known as a product backlog. That is all the backlog which is needed to build a product. The next artifact is sprint backlog. So we have studied before that in Scrum, we break the Scrum into n number of sprints. Sprint objective is to build a small amount of working functionality of a software and ship it to the client for demo. This product backlog is all the activity which needs to be done to build a complete software. This sprint backlog, it's a small set of product backlog which will be completed in that sprint. N number of sprint backlog is equal to 1 product backlogs. So in each sprint backlog, we will be taking some part of product backlog and working in a sprint backlog. Then the burn down chart. So burn down chart is after each sprint is completed, we check how was the activity or the progress of that sprint. Like how good we were working on a sprint. So it is a chart known as burn down chart. So the ideal case is that it should start from here and it should end to the end. So that we started at some task which we have here, and at the end of the sprint it should reach to 0, so that all the tasks which we are assigned are completed by end of the sprint. So it is generally an inclined line from top to bottom. So these are the three artifacts: product backlog, all the backlogs, all the tasks which we need to do to develop the complete software; sprint backlog, all the tasks which we need to do to complete only that sprint is known as sprint backlog. Burn down chart is the outcome of the sprint which shows how was our progress in a sprint. In a Scrum, there are three types of persons or the roles the persons have. So the first one is product owner. So there is a client who needs a software developed. So what he does, he approaches a company who can develop a software for him. Now what the company does, company assigns a person the role of product owner. So product owner is a person who communicates with the client and understand the requirements. So he is the whole responsible person from the company who will be handling all the activities for the development of the software so that it reaches to the client. He is the whole responsible for the project or the software development. Scrum Master. During the sprint, as the Agile says that the team should meet together once daily. When a team is following a Scrum, there is a meeting which is held in morning daily for 10 to 15 minutes, that is known as Scrum meeting. And Scrum Master is a person, he can be the product owner or any person who handles that meeting, is known as Scrum Master because he handles the Scrum meeting. The third role is the team. So the team comprises of the persons who work on the software. It can be developers, it can be testers, it can be designers. So when we talk about Agile, when we talk about Scrum, we talk about teams. We do not talk about testers or developers as an individual. Agile does not says that. Agile says a developer can also work as a tester when the need arises, and tester can also take part of some development. Agile always and the Scrum always talk about the team. So product owner is the concerned person from the company who handles the project. Scrum Master is a person who handles the Scrum meeting which happens daily, and team is a person who actually works on the project. Now there are three ceremonies also. First is the sprint planning. So as we know that in a Scrum we have a number of sprints which delivers a set of module which is developed for the software. So before starting of that sprint, we have a meeting known as sprint planning. In that meeting, we decide what we'll be doing in this sprint. The next is daily Scrum. As discussed before, that in a Scrum, in the morning time, we have a meeting daily with all the team members, product owners, or clients. They are not the necessary person, but they may join, the product owner and the client, and a person known as a Scrum Master. So Scrum Master is a person who manages that meeting, known as daily Scrum. And the third point is sprint review. What the sprint review is, when the sprint is completed, as we have discussed, what we do, we ship a product, a demoable product to the client, which can be shipped or viewed by the client. After the end of the sprint, we present a demo to the client that what all the features we have developed in this sprint. That meeting is known as sprint review. So sprint planning, before starting of the sprint, the planning we do is known as sprint planning. Daily Scrum meeting which is held daily is known as daily Scrum. And sprint review, at the end of each sprint, we have a meeting with the client where we showcase what we have developed in this sprint is known as sprint review.